Hello, I'm Adam. We're in Vegas Pro 17 and we're going to talk about every single keyboard shortcut that I could find that works in Vegas. Let me know at the end of it if I missed any. A lot of these trickled throughout are extremely helpful, some of which are just niche, but most of which I'm really shocked I didn't know. I wish I had done this project a lot sooner. Let's get started. If you see your Vegas icon, if you have it pinned to the taskbar, so you can right click and pin it to the taskbar or unpin it. If you have it pinned to the taskbar, you can actually right click it and select a recent project. With space, you can start playing from the cursor, and then when you hit it again, it returns the cursor back to the marker. Control N opens up the new project dialog box, while Control Shift N bypasses that and chooses your default settings. Alt F4 exits Vegas. Control F4 closes the current sequence. Control O opens up an existing project, so it goes to the previous place you've opened something up. Alt Enter goes to project properties. Control S is a shortcut to save it. If you see a little asterisk up here, that means it's not saved. S is a shortcut to cut. Control Z reverses any decision you make, so it is a undo. Alt 0 sets the focus to the track view, so if you have something like the tremor open and flashing, you can hit Alt 0 and then you'll be flashing and functioning inside of the timeline itself. Alt 1 shows the Explorer window. Alt 2 shows the tremor window. Mine's currently hidden. If it is not brought up, it will bring these up. Alt 3 shows the mixer window. It also docked it to the master bus, but you can grab this, hit Control to undock the master bus and give it its own spot again. Alt 5 shows the project media window. Alt 6 shows the project notes. Alt 7 shows the transitions tab. Alt 8 shows the video effects tab. Alt 9 shows the media generators tab. Control Alt 1 shows the plugin manager window. Control Alt 2 shows the scopes. Control Alt 3 shows the surround planner. B shows the master audio track down here. Control Shift B shows the master video track. Control Shift W will hide waveforms on your audio. Control Shift C shows or hides the buttons on your track, like Event Pan Crop and FX. If you have a crossfade, you'll notice that your fade length is here, 2 seconds and 20 frames right there. So if you hit Control Shift T, it'll hide that. Control Shift T again will bring it back. Next, Control Shift O will show you whether or not your GPU and CPU are being used and how much so. Audio envelopes, volume. That can be done by V. We'll add a volume envelope. P will add a pan envelope, which is this red one here. Show or hide the envelopes, you can do Control Shift E. To toggle between your windows, up here just simply hit Control Tab and you can rotate between them all. F6 will also do it. Tab through the tabs. Shift F6 or Shift Control Tab will do it backwards. Control Alt 0 will open the script editor. So it only shows 3 right here, but it's Control Alt D and a number. So it is 4 buttons. To bring out this save menu, I can save it as anything I want. I can make the keyboard shortcut anything I want, and it will save my window layout. So now if I move my window layout around, I can hit just Alt D and 2, only 3 buttons, to then return the window layout. Alt Shift Up will continue to highlight video tracks as long as you're holding it. Going up, and Alt Shift Down will continue to highlight tracks as long as you're going down. This works for video and audio tracks. Control Shift Up arrow will increase the height of all the tracks. Control Shift Down arrow will decrease the height of all the tracks. tilde will minimize all the tracks, and hitting control tilde will return all the tracks to normal. You can use your mouse wheel to scroll in or out on your timeline. You can also hit control up arrow and control down arrow to scroll in and out. However, it does it more maximize, minimize fashion. It's got 3 modes. Zoom out all the way, zoom in a lot, zoom in all the way. The up arrow zooms in, the down arrow zooms out of your timeline. Alt Shift and the up or down arrow will tab between highlighting different tracks. Ooh. Shift plus up or down arrow will show you more or less of your waveforms. So if your waveforms are naturally quiet, but you want to see them, you can artificially, you're not actually changing the volume here, just so you know. You're not actually changing the volume. If you're holding the shift key while moving the cursor, it will ignore event groupings. Normally you would have a marker that hits right here. If you're holding the shift key, it ignores that. You can group things, by the way, by just highlighting 2 things and hitting G. The G key, now these are in a group, they move together. Let me move this up a little bit so you can see that a little better. So now these 2 move together because I grouped them with the G key, and you can ignore that event grouping by hitting Shift, scroll 1 at a time. So you can't move it, but you can scroll out or scroll in on the clip. You can type in a time on your timeline. Control G will go wherever you have your timeline typed out here, but really what you would do is you would type in a time and then you would hit enter. So if I want to go to 10 seconds in like that, then I can hit enter and I'll go to 10 seconds in. It ignores whether or not it's frame or drop frame, so don't worry if you want to use a colon or a semicolon. It's not going to be a problem. The home key goes to the very, very beginning of your sequence. And conversely, the end key goes to the end of your sequence, but it doesn't quite go to the end of your actual sequence here, because if you're scrolled out, see, it jumps to near the last frame. So it's the end of your visible timeline. If you hit Shift Q, you will select your loop region. If you just hit Q, your loop region will then, your actual loop region will turn on its looping ability. Backspace will restore your previous timeline selection, so whatever you have just left, it'll return it to as far as what you're highlighting or doing. Whoa. So if numlock is not selected, hitting page up will move up the sequence going towards 0, and page down will move down the sequence going towards 0, and it does it by major grid lines, major markers in the timeline. The left or right arrow moves just 1 frame at a time, however. And if you hold down an arrow, it'll hold and move through 1 frame at a time. If you create a region, this region right here could be called whatever. And you have a region. This region is called 2, and that is no coincidence. If you want to move to the beginning of region 2, just hit 2. And now you're in region 2. If you create regions, you can jump from massive parts of your projects to wherever just by hitting the keyboard number corresponding to that. I sets an endpoint. O sets an out point. If you hit Control and Shift and then drag with the mouse, you will actually highlight and create at the same time a loop region that is highlighting everything. If you hit Control X, it will remove a section. If you have it highlighted and you hit Delete, it will remove a section. If you hit Shift Delete, it will remove a section. Control C will copy a highlighted section, and Control V will paste a highlighted section. Hitting Control B opens up the paste repeat box. You can actually repeat your paste over and over again, and you can leave an even spacing in between it programmatically, or you can just make sure they're next end to end, and you can paste something 4 times. If you have something ready to render, you can just hit Control M to render to a new track, and then it will bring up the Render to New Track menu. Alt Backspace is another way to also undo. If you would like to redo a selection, you can hit Control Y and bring it right back, or redo what I've just done. If you hit Shift F5, it will rebuild your audio peaks. For some of you, that is a nightmare. For others of you, that might be exactly what you're looking for. And it does it for your highlighted track. You have editing tools down here. This one, you can select a custom editing tool like your normal edit tool, but then you also have a group editing tool, and a selection editing tool, and a zoom editing tool. Hitting D will actually cycle between these tools right here. Meanwhile, Shift D will go backwards through them. Plot twist. If you're holding shift, you can actually select multiple events on your timeline. Hitting Control A selects everything, and hitting Control Shift A unselects everything. If you have your number pad on, hitting 8 will actually raise a video to a higher video track, and hitting 2 will lower an audio to a lower audio track. As a note, if your audio track is already moved down and it's selected, 8 will move your audio track up as well. Same applies to 2 and your video track. Hitting 1 will actually slip your highlighted track 1 frame, and hitting 3 will move it forward 1 frame. 4 and 6 will do the same thing, but 7 and 9 will actually select the very beginning or the very end of your highlighted clip. So let's say you like this little section of time right here, but you would rather it start a little earlier and end a little sooner. You can slip it. Without selecting the slip tool, you can simply just hit Alt and then drag on the inside, and you'll slip. See the audio slipping through right there? You'll actually slip the event. If you want to slip trim, you can hit Alt as you trim, and it will slip and trim. If you want to raise your pitch semitone, you can just hit equal. And sound like a crazed chipmunk without messing with the speed. Equal and minus will lower it to be lower. If you want to raise by octave, you can hit shift and plus, and you'll raise it by 1 octave at a time. You can also hit shift and minus to lower it 1 octave at a time. So many things here, and I'm gonna have to edit this for forever, but it'll be worth it. If you've got your pitch all janked up and you want to reset it, just hit Control Shift and then equal, or Control Shift and minus, and either one will bring it back to normal. Control L will toggle auto ripple. We've talked about that 100 times on this channel now. To toggle crossfading, it's Control Shift and X, and that'll toggle this button right here. Hold Shift to override, but you can enable snapping or disable snapping with F8. One of the new fancy ones, Alt-G, will open up your color corrector, and Alt-G again will toggle it back to your normal timeline. If I want to edit this in a specific audio editor, you can have that pre-mapped. Hit Control-E, and then with no fusses whatsoever, you are going to be inside of your audio editor with the audio. You can toggle your audio envelopes with V on the selected track, and your P will toggle any panning envelopes that you already have as well. Hitting C will bring up the command window where you can actually put in a command inside of your video. This is, my belief is that this is mostly like a Windows WMV kind of thing where you can do like commands for specific kinds of video players. However, if you know more information about that, I would love to hear it. Control Alt R will toggle whether or not your track is armed for recording. Control R will add a new track and instantly start recording to that new track the second you press the button. How neat is that? Hitting Shift and the spacebar will start playing your timeline from the very beginning. You can also do this by hitting Shift and F12. Enter will play and then pause, so you can start playing and then start pause and then play again from where you paused it. So if you want to keep stopping and starting, enters your button. You can also do that with Control and F12. Why you would do it with Control and F12, I don't know, but you can. We talked about using Enter to stop and start playback, but you can also stop playback with Escape. Funny, that word's spelled just like escape. If you want to dim your audio, like it's too loud when you're mixing, you can dim your audio with this little key right here when we're doing the actual bass. If you want to do this button without pressing the key, you need to hit Control Shift F12, and then you can toggle it on and off entirely without moving that mouse. You can scrub through your footage with J, K to stop, and no, and L. Sir, that needs to be. Hitting it more times scrubs through faster. Alt-Shift+4 will toggle your external monitor preview, which is this little button right here. F7 will generate MIDI timecode. Control-Q will add a new audio track. Control-Shift-Q will add a new video track. Double-clicking most sliders will return them to their default value. You can mute selected tracks by hitting Z. So if you have multiple hit, you can hit Z to mute them all. X will solo a track that is highlighted. If you hit Alt and F8, does nothing. What a lie. If you double click on the corner of a track, you will enter edit A and B mode, where one track now has 2 layers. If you move something and you decide you want it to ripple all the tracks, just hit F and then it will post ripple. If you decide you want it to ripple everything and not just the affected tracks, you can hit Control F and it will ripple everything. If you want this middle option right here, the all tracks, markers, and regions without the bus tracks, then just hit Control Shift F. To ungroup something, highlight them both and hit U, and then they will be ungrouped together the next time you select them. Meanwhile, Control Shift U will just toggle the Ignore Event Groupings button. Hitting Shift G will select all the events in a group. For example, this group includes 2 things, so it selected both of them after I highlighted, and see the little yellow highlight selected both of them after I hit Shift G. If you have envelopes in your track and you want to remove it, hit Shift V and you'll remove the envelopes, whatever floats your boat. And the same goes if you have a panning track and you want to remove it, you can hit Shift P and remove your panning track. R inserts a region marker. N inserts a CD track region if you're doing some CD mixing. And Shift N inserts a CD track index. However, I don't have anything to populate that from. I just simply double click that to pull up this menu. If you have stuff in your project media and you hit a letter, it will actually cycle to something that starts with that letter you hit. If you have the trimmer and you want to put a bit to the timeline, when it's highlighted, just hit A and it will pop it in where your cursor is. If you hit Shift A, it'll do it from the cursor, but if with just A, but if you hit Shift A, it'll do it to the cursor, up to the cursor. H will sort the trimmer history, but you can clear the trimmer history with Control H. You can also hit Control E to open your trimmer track in your audio editor as well. I do not have a surround sound project for the surround planner. I will list them all right here. F1 brings up your Vegas Pro help. It just brought it up on my other monitor here. The Shift F1 will bring up the what is this help. So when you click on something, it will then give you the exact what is this. I clicked on the trimmer, it brings that up. It keeps bringing it up on my other monitor. If you hit Control when highlighting a clip, you will crunch the media. This is one of 3 ways you can slow something down in Vegas Pro 17, or you can speed it up by that. Increasing the time obviously slows it down, decreasing the time crunches it and speeds it up. Hitting the Control and Shift wheel will scroll vertically. So if you want to go up or down without selecting over here, all you have to do is hit Control, and there you go. If you hold the scroll down, you can auto scroll, which is actually, I didn't know that, and I'm going to start doing that all the time. If you hold the Control key with any slider, you will move it in smaller increments. This also works for your color wheels and things like that too. Alt G, if I want to move the color wheels instead of just doing it all crazy willy-nilly. You can always hit this button to reset it, but you can just hit Control and move it slower, which is much nicer for this kind of editing. Hitting Control on the Shift wheel will move the cursor through the timeline, and Control Alt Shift will move it 1 frame at a time, so super slow. You can see that better here. Control Shift, scroll through the timeline, Control Alt Shift to scroll through this timeline one frame at a time. Alright guys, that is every single keyboard shortcut I can find for Vegas Pro 17. If I missed any, please let me know. You can support this channel by buying anything through our affiliates link if you're new to editing. You can learn about editing and everything on the software on this channel on YouTube, but if you want to learn the art of editing, I highly suggest checking out this Udemy course where you can, my Udemy course, where you can edit with me through 3 separate projects as we learn Vegas and editing together.